Hello again. As the World Economic Forum meets tomorrow in the Swiss town of Davos, it is to consider how to negotiate a world very different from that which existed a year ago. When the Prime Minister of Canada was striking a deal in China the other day, he spoke of a new world order. Although the phrase was an unfortunate one, redolent of conspiracy theories, it was perfectly accurate because there is indeed a new world order, one which would have been hard to imagine a year ago. The United States has driven the Chinese and Russians from a South American country by the use of overwhelming military force, bombed Iran, and is now threatening to seize an enormous chunk of territory which belongs to a fellow member of NATO. None of this should really have come as a surprise because President Trump has spoken plainly about his aims and intentions. The problem is that we are so used to world leaders bluffing and making empty threats and then backing down. But it comes as something of a surprise to come across a statesman who says what he is going to do and then goes ahead and does it. A bit alarming, really, in the devious world of international politics. I'm not, by the way, saying that I approve or disapprove of what the American president is up to. I'm merely explaining what is going on. And what is going on is President Trump giving notice that he is quitting Europe. It is the return of American isolationism with a vengeance. On steroids, one might almost say. From its very founding, the United States avowedly kept aloof from the quarrels between European and Asian nations, as long as they in turn left the Western Hemisphere alone and acknowledged that both North and South America lay within the sphere of American influence. When European countries like Germany began attacking American shipping, as happened during the First World War, or installing missiles in the Caribbean, as the Russians did in 1962, and a red line is crossed, and America reacted with massive force. According to this doctrine, Greenland falls firmly within the Western Hemisphere and is therefore part of America's domain. They regard the ruling of such a place by Europeans as a historical anomaly which must be rectified. If this means falling out with European powers, including Britain, well, that's just too bad. If it means the end of NATO, then that too is a price worth paying. The United States is now dealing with what it sees as threats to the nation from Asia and Europe. That is why they bombed Iran, of course, because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, then they might well use it against America. It is why the United States will act again against Iran, because of their ballistic missile program, which will soon have missiles capable of reaching the continental United States. The Americans are not about to allow Iran to possess the ability to attack Washington or New York, which is why bombers are now assembling at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. From this perspective, the war in Ukraine is wholly irrelevant, just a squabble between European and Asian interests, which poses no threat to the United States. Greenland, on the other hand, might well be accessible by China and Russia. That is a threat, the idea of aggressive European or Asian nations getting a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. America's not going to allow it. As I say, I do not necessarily agree with this point of view. It is simply how the world is now. If Britain wishes to oppose the United States and incur horrible economic damage in the process, which might tip this country into a recession, I do not personally think this wise. There is a new world order, but for those of us who know somewhat of history, it is really the return of the old world order, which, since the end of the Second World War, we have persuaded ourselves was over. Welcome back, American isolationism.